This is the Talk CNY Economic Champions Miniseries presented by NBT Bank, a podcast by Center State CEO, Central New York's premier leadership and economic development organization. This series will shine a light on local businesses making an impact in our community and driving our regional economy forward. Whether it's new jobs, company milestones, business expansions, investments in operations, or DEI initiatives, join us as we celebrate CNY's economic champions. Today's conversation is with David Casullo, CEO and founder of Daneli Partners and CEO of Rock City Development. David is the author of Leading the High Energy Culture, What the Best CEOs Do to Create an Atmosphere Where Employees Flourish, published with McGraw-Hill and a best-selling book in the Human Resources and Leadership category on Amazon. In this episode, we discuss his work as a C-suite executive, entrepreneur, leadership coach, and author on a mission to develop leaders who have the courage and capability to change the world. Dave has developed leaders in local businesses through executive coaching and leadership development programs, and has traveled the world to work with leaders including top executives in Fortune 500 organizations. Here in Central New York, he has also worked on the development of Little Falls, including creative infrastructure projects from restaurants to a boutique hotel and even a dance studio. So today we have David Casullo joining us. Thank you so much, David.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Kate, for having me.
Yeah, wonderful. So David is joining us. He is CEO of Daneli Partners and also CEO of Rock City Development. We're going to be having an awesome conversation today about you and about those companies that you own.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so let's just start by getting to know you a little bit.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and your connection with CNY?
Central New York has been a big part of my whole life. I grew up in Little Falls and married my high school sweetheart. We've been married for 40 years. And we're more in love now than we have been ever, which is great. So we're blessed with 3 children and 6 grandchildren. I've spent a lot of time in Syracuse. I went to Hamilton College and played football there, and then moved here post-Hamilton and got my first job with T.J. Sheehan Beer Distributor in Liverpool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. After a long journey of a variety of work opportunities in executive leadership, that was distribution, and then I went into manufacturing and then into retail. I finally found an area where I think my heart and soul connected with what maybe my blessings are. And,
I love that. Yeah.
So it was when I was hired as the Senior Vice President of Human Resources for Raymore and Flanagan. And it was the year 2000, and it was really at the front end of their steep growth curve. And I had the opportunity to work with some fantastic people at all levels of the organization. Mm-hmm. And I had the significant challenge of creating the Leadership Development Institute there, which was a big opportunity. Tim Ahern and Associates is a friend and someone who I've always admired for how he develops leaders in this area. He actually played football at SU. My brother is the more famous one of the two of us. He was an SU coach for 10 years, and then he went to Georgia Tech and Michigan State, and finally 10 years in the pros under Al Davis at the Oakland Raiders.
Oh, you got to wonder who was coaching him on leadership that whole time.
Yeah, well, I think it was... I'm his younger brother, so if you know my brother, he's the one coaching.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. Building the Leadership Development Institute really changed my life. And I had the occasion of really exercising a lot of what I had learned over the course of my life. And part of the exercise of building, leaders in that context was a function of, sort of reflecting, we called it metacognitively, on experiences from your youth and people who impact you in ways that shape who you are. And you may or may not realize it, but the reality is those influences in your early life did.
Yeah.
And Central New York really, when I came to think about it deeply, had a huge impact on who I became and who Lori became. And we didn't realize that till we started moving around for my career. I was in Boston for 8 years and Cincinnati for 5 years.
Yeah.
And we realized that as much as we enjoyed other places, that the community aspects that we really came to love here were absent. And part of it was because both of us have deep roots in a lot of family and generationally a lot of family. But a lot of it was just the way Central New Yorkers are. And I think it's a function, Kate, of, the history here of industrialism, agriculture, the kinds of communities that evolved as a result of that.
Yeah.
When it started to all become very clear, that's when I started to realize that, there's a formula for the kind of influencers that really connect with me deeply. And when I sort of teased out that formula and built it into the Learning Center, the Leadership Development Institute at Raymore and Flanagan, it worked. And so coming back and starting these two businesses that we'll talk about, I'm sure, has been largely our decision to gift back to the area what we've learned works for helping everyone and anyone who cares to do so become, a better leader of people. And those blessings here are really important to the generations now evolving through the school systems. You got the Workforce Development Initiative, you got, the chip fab tidal wave that's happening. So a lot of what we have learned works and have decided to come back, teach, and deploy here is the right timing.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting.
So one thing that you mentioned that I'm very curious to hear more about, you described that there was a specific type of leader drawn to you and that you felt you served best. Could you describe that person?
I can. That's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, when I was a kid, my father was a World War II veteran, second day Normandy, and a medic.
Yeah. Wow. Oh,
so
goodness.
I when I learned what that meant, and it wasn't from him, it was sort of a shock to my, self.
My goodness, yeah.
I realized that my dad was always very duty-oriented, duty to his country, duty to his family. I never had a moment when I didn't feel like, I was fed properly or didn't have a roof over my head or the, clothes on my back.
Yeah.
He was very dutiful. And when I reflect on that, I realized that so am I. And my brother, who I mentioned, is 11 years older than me. And he's always been a very strong sort of coaching advocate, not only in the athletic world, but also, to me as his brother. And he took an interest in me in ways that, really have shaped who I am. So when I thought about that, having now been challenged with identifying what it is that differentiates those people that connect with us deeply as opposed to others, that's a big component of it, right? It's someone who, for no other reason other than they care about you deeply, takes an interest in you and sees something in you that is a blessing that maybe you don't even see yourself. And they help you sort of refine it, develop it, build it into a strength, and point you in a direction where you can apply it in a way that allows you to not only change something that's important to you, but be a fulfilled, happy, joyful person who contributes in some meaningful way to society. So those leaders are very special, and they're everywhere here in Central New York.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think what people don't realize is, we all have the potential to be that, because the way we define leadership at Daneli is it's influence. And anyone who has the ability or the opportunity to influence another human being, whether as a boss in a workplace, a supervisor, or even in a home, the most important leadership role, parenting. So everybody has the potential to lead. And so giving people the gift of helping them understand the formula for connecting deeply with another human being and moving them to act in some meaningful way to them and to what is needed, what needs doing in this area and the broader world is really the gift that we're giving back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Much less a manner of being prescriptive, like, hey, just do this thing, but really about focusing on the connection that you can build with someone. And then effectively your influence there in that relationship as a coach. So being able to recognize that in a person, like, oh, this person is going to be able to connect and wants to connect and therefore can actually work towards something together.
Yeah, it creates energy. There's 8 billion people in the world, and every one of us has value. That's what we believe.
Absolutely.
So the shame about that is that the potential value that exists is far underutilized. And we've come to realize that if you give somebody the gift that we just described, and you said it very well, and they recognize that you're taking an interest in them and that you're trying to help them in some important way, they respond to that. And they start to feel like they are a valuable person with an opportunity to do something special. And anybody who feels that way is immediately energized.
Yes, because why would someone invest in you if you didn't have this potential?
Exactly.
That would be silly. So yes. Oh, I love that so much. And I love how this all ties together too with the story that you're telling about Central New York, people who are drawn to this region or raised in this region or maybe even return back to it. I'm an example of a boomerang, someone who came back. I know you spent some time away and you came back too. But yeah, there's something that we really do cultivate here that is unique and, as you said, special, and that's really great that you're tied into that piece too. I know even on your website you feature that tied and relationship to community and specifically to Central New York as a value that you like to see in others and cultivate in others too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's at the same time when it seems like there's a renaissance here.
Yes.
Yeah, right? In my 62 years of affiliation in one way or another with Central New York, I have not seen this, where houses are selling above their market price.
Oh my goodness, what's happening? Yeah.
Right, where there's more jobs than people, and where there's definitely an excitement about, what can become of this area, not only as a result of the chip fab market, but even, in our world, there's a revitalization of agriculture, agribusiness, agritourism, agroeducation. There's a long history of that in this area that has been latent for a long time. And there's a lot of values within the context of that are still here, that if we could reignite would also regenerate a move in the right direction. So we're really excited to be part of that.
Yeah, well, let's talk more about what that looks like. So describe more about the functions of Daneli Partners, especially in a way that if someone's listening right now and they're wondering, oh, this could be a match for me, I like what this guy is saying, what is the offering? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So when I wrote the book, which was essentially the methodology that we had learned worked at Raymore and Flanigan, and then tested it at the consulting firm in Fortune 50 companies globally, and realized, this thing has transferability to really any leader who's moved to develop themselves in some meaningful way. So the whole idea when we brought the methodology back here and started Daneli was to work with who I had identified from reflection were those, grassroots leaders that I and Lori had experienced growing up here, who were primarily business owners, small business owners. They worked to build a business, and then on the off business hours, they would coach baseball or, volunteer to contribute in some way to the community. I thought if we could give the gift of what we know works in leadership in business to these folks, how much more could they impact people that were impacted like us today going forward if they had these principles? So that was the whole idea.
Yeah.
So we started working in some great businesses. One group here in Syracuse is a big client. Upstate Shredding.
Yes, we've had Pierre on the podcast before.
Great, yeah. And
wonderful person.
Yeah. And so we've taken in companies like that on our client, side, And we began to realize that, there's a common set of challenges that these businesses are up against and that we need to try to figure out a way to help address. One of them is attracting and retaining employees, talent. And, one of the things that upsets me about upstate New York is we tend to buy into the narrative that, this place is not the right place. If you have any talent and any ability, get the hell out, go to Boston, go to Texas.
I remember getting that message, and that's exactly what I did. I left and went out of state.
Sure.
But now it's so different, and as parents, my goodness, how lucky are we that we can give a different message to our children.
Yes,
right?
and that's a very isolated group, but it's important for us to do that. Mm-hmm. When we started to think about where the pipeline of talent is, it's in the school systems, right? So when we started to realize we can serve our clients in the business community better by also going into the school systems and using the bully pulpit there to change the narrative and give these young people a better idea of the kinds of businesses that are out here, the kinds of opportunities that exist.
Yes.
And then give them the gift in a bit of a modified way of the formula that helps them become a little bit more intentional about how they aim and move toward what their blessings are and what matters to them.
Yeah.
We could help fill the pipeline. That was the whole idea.
Yeah.
So we built programs, we went into the school systems, we got COSERs. Now we're in 19 school districts. We're also working in several community colleges.
Very cool.
We're working in several of the universities like Lemoyne, Utica University, SUNY Poly, and we're working in like 49 businesses. And the blessing of Daneli, a lot of things happen serendipitously, and when you look at, when they happen and trace back how they happened, it's almost like the universe and providence aligned to make it happen.
Yeah.
Because now we have this pipeline of clients from grade 5 all the way up through grade 12 and into junior colleges in many cases and into 4-year institutions and then into the workforce and places here like we work in Wolfspeed, we work in Danfoss. So we're giving a pipeline and a channel of opportunity where there wasn't one before it was cut off. And that's really gratifying.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that I'm really excited about being affiliated with Center State CEO is because of what you guys are doing to sort of really magnify the intensity of what I just described.
That's exactly right.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we sort of found each other. And so I'm really excited because I think where things are magnified throughout central New York is when there's a collaborative spirit. When institutions, educational, not-for-profits, private investors like me, and organizations like yours come together and align behind, a need, in this case, workforce development. And also, we should talk a little bit about housing and can make a difference, much bigger difference collectively than if any single one of us tries to take, the baton and run with it. I forget who it was. I think it was Steve Jobs who said, if you want to run fast, run alone. If you want to run far, run together. That's really what this is about. That's the renaissance that we're in right now here.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. Yeah. And, Rob Simpson, President and CEO here, says something similar. If we work together, we win. Same principle. And you're right. Yes. Very, very good alignment here. And no wonder that you found this organization and that now you get to work together and do some really cool things into the future. And I love hearing about these values. I think especially for listeners who might be curious about working together with you, just knowing that how much you value impact, getting out into the community, service, understanding on a more just broad scale, what are the impacts of the community and how can you really make a profound influence on that, not just with the people that you work with, but even beyond that. I loved hearing about these values of yours. I know impact is really right there at the front. So could you share with us what really differentiates Daneli Partners from maybe some of the other consultants or coaches around?
Authenticity and credibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I've learned works with organizations who have limited time, limited resources, is they need to have a relationship with a resource like us that can not only teach some of the methods, formulas that we know work, but be more pragmatic about institutionalizing them to their specific needs. And one of the things that we've built Daneli around is having people who have sweat the sweat and bled the blood and fought the fight and have been successful, but have also been unsuccessful, because you learn as much from failure as you do from success. And so we've built a company where when we're standing at the front of the room, either instructing and helping an executive leadership team, we'd like to start at the top of the organization because things tend to flow down, good and bad. Or whether we're coaching an executive, a CEO or a president, we like to make sure that they understand that we are intentional about understanding their specific presenting need and then adding a level of experience and expertise that they're not likely going to get from other organizations like ours.
Yeah.
The other thing we do that I think is really fascinating, and this is serendipitous, is when we built Rock City Development, it's become a learning lab, right? I say to anybody in our organization who has the privilege to stand in front of a client that if we're not behaving and doing what we're teaching within the context of the environment of the 10 operating businesses that we run, then we're a fraud. And that's not who we are.
Yeah.
So we use our 10 operating businesses as a learning lab to actually continue to refine and teach our principles and see how they work to make our businesses and those people who run our businesses and participate in our businesses more successful.
Yeah, fascinating.
And it has the peripheral effect of impacting the community for the same reasons I articulated earlier. Because these people go out into the community after they've worked hard, at their job, and they're the ones that, go home to their families and treat them well, volunteer for the various things that they care about in the community, support the community in ways that they can, and it really continues to build on itself to a point where at some point there's going to be a tipping point and this whole area is just going to be, forward moving.
Tremendous. And when you say these businesses are?
Great, I should have said that, right? Yeah. So within the context of
the mystery, we need to know.
Yeah, the mystery.
Yeah.
So we started and focused on Little Falls. We bought a 4-story, 1839 vintage stone mill on the Mohawk River, which was famous for manufacturing Civil War Union Army uniforms.
Okay.
Right there.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. And if you what we learned is, and I learned this from a bunch of development friends, not the least of it, which is Dave Nutting from VIP Structures. You want to hedge your risk.
Yeah, Meg's been on the podcast too. I'm telling you.
Meg has.
Good company.
She's fantastic. Yes. Yeah. So, those 4 floors, we ended up doing 4 different types of businesses so that we minimize the risk. But all of them contribute to the forward progress of that community. So the first floor is all retail. We have a dance studio for kids. We have a UPS store. We have a wood-fired pizza restaurant, and we have a cafe.
You never need to leave.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. If you're in the building, you can stay in the building, even in the winter months, which is great. The second floor is a commercial business out of Springfield, Massachusetts. They do recycling of organic and inorganic goods for like craft foods and people like that. They have 75 young employees who are very smart. And then on the third floor, we have our inn, which is a 12-room, sort of a boutique hotel.
Oh, so cool.
On the fourth floor, we have an event center, and we have a couple of tenants that are designers and a massage therapist. And then all of our businesses are the rest of the top floor, all of our headquarter offices. Then we own a French-American restaurant, the Canal Side Inn. And we own 200 acres of land. We've built 26 single-family market-rate homes. We've built a duplex townhome on what is going to be a duplex development of 70 acres. We have a farm with barns that we're going to do hydroponic farming. We have a 2.8 megawatt solar array.
Okay.
6 UPS stores. So it's become really a learning laboratory, not only for leadership development, so that the people flourish within we have 75 employees, but it's also become a learning lab for what works in terms of revitalizing a community. And we've made some mistakes, and we've learned from those mistakes. So at some point, we hope to then teach what we've learned about community development at Rock City Development to other communities throughout the Central New York region.
That is tremendous.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun. And it's really fulfilling. And like I said, having grown up here and married my high school sweetheart, it really makes us feel like we're doing something valuable. Because at the end of the day, we have 6 grandkids that we hope will be here for the rest of their lives, and we want them to benefit.
Yeah.
There's a line in Hamilton that goes, planting seeds in a garden we'll never see. And, we're doing a lot of that.
That's a moving line. That's a good one. So you've seen some incredible successes. Recently you reached a company milestone, right?
Yeah. Daneli, which was a startup, both companies are a startup. We reached, a high 7-figure goal that, we had only imagined we could. And that was a really exciting moment. We got Business of the Year in the Herkimer County region.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And on the Rock City Development side, the continued advancement of the businesses that under that hat at the rate that they're advancing is really, really exciting.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, Dave, it's obvious you're a rising tide. I'm sure many will be interested in rising along with you. If people want to reach out, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I think connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Daneli Partners, and Daneli is spelled Daneli. You can check out our website, danelipartners.com, and if you care to, send me an email, dcasullo@danelipartners.com.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a delight.
Pleasure's been mine. Thank you so much, Kate.
All right, thanks. Thank you for tuning in to the Talk CNY Economic Champions mini-series presented by NBT Bank. Episodes of this Center State CEO podcast are available on clickcny.com and all major podcast platforms. After each episode, you can join us on Click, where we'll continue to talk about this topic and provide additional resources and links. In Click, you can listen to or watch every episode of Talk CNY. Click is Center State CEO's digital chamber platform where our members connect, learn, and receive support from our staff. For new episode reminders, be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast listening app. If you're enjoying our series, consider leaving a quick review or a 5-star rating.
I would recommend NBT Bank to any business. My name is Chris Palomino, and I'm the president of Atlas Fence.
Chris had decided to purchase Atlas Fence from the previous owner. He had previous connections at NBT Bank.
NBT Bank provided me equipment financing, doubling our entire production workforce. It's important to me as a business owner that the decisions of our banking relationship are made locally.